hello, everybody. Here we are, live at 5 Kenya time, 2 p.m. Ghana time, 10 a.m. New York time, 7 a.m. in California, every Wednesday, every week. Hello, everybody. This is Queen Mother Speaks. I am Ella Dashanaba King, also known as Queen Mother, your host. Greetings to you and you and you, and welcome to this wonderful Wednesday. We're in a new season. The theme is success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So, courage is the secret sauce that allows you to act despite your fears. So, what is courage? We're going to be talking about courage this season, and we're going to take a deep dive into the mental and moral strengths to venture, persevere, and withstand fear, danger, or difficulty. Queen Mother reminds you to hit that like, share, comment button. We're pleased to say that our co-host Nana Afua Adezewa, also known as Teresa R. Kemp, is in the house. Coach Rakaya is out, and she's coming to you now. Nana, who's in the studio
Well,
today? Give us
where,
some shout outs.
wherever you are in the world, I just want to say to you this morning, we are so happy to have you. Make sure you put your name in the comment box and tell us where you're viewing us from in the world today. And we want to thank you for joining us. So, shout outs to our social media followers: Jeanette Lee, Karen Musako, Jacqueline, Muntap, Chantel, Bobby, Lucy, Talee, Emmanuel, Havli, Tazim, Tempera, Sharon, Carl, Willie Butler. This is our anniversary month. Time has flown by. This year is going so fast. Well, today we are celebrating, and we're going to feature 4 stories of men of valor, scholarly wealth, and courage. And happy to have back on the show this year Mama Mabel Griffith. Now, she's turned 101, and we're trying to bring up her presentation this week because we want you to hear from her, and she's singing. But we've had technical difficulty, so if we don't, we're going to try to put it and post it on our YouTube channel and on our social media Facebook pages so that you still get to hear from her today. So she will be in our comments and posted on our Facebook Queen Mother Speaks page if you don't hear from her today on the show. So I invite you to get relaxed and ready for the awesome show. Hit that like, share, and comment button. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Queen Mother Speaks, our Facebook pages, Queen Mother Speaks, and mine is Mrs. Teresa R. Kemp. That's my author's page. And if it's your first time tuning in, we thank you so much for being here. We have men, women, and youth having a very unique, innovative projects and transformative works, plus a special edition show like today's 4th anniversary tributes. So please stay right there. Go to our page, tell us who you are, where you're from, and also we want to know what guest would you like to hear from on our shows.
Yeah.
Click on Facebook.com, Queen Mother Speaks, Facebook.com, author Teresa R. Kemp. That's me, Nana Afua Adezewa the First. I'm the Queen Mother of Man Kasim Traditional Area in the central region of Ghana, Africa. Happy July. Blessings to our faithful fans out of Atlanta, Lady Mo, Tina Jones, Ernestine, Maria, High Priestess Shachette, Melissa Kemp, Carmen, Michelle, and from Florida, Solo, Geneva, Kathy King, Rosemary Johnson, and Marilyn Lewis. Back to you, Queen Mother.
All right. Thank you for that, Donna. All right. So from the West Coast, USA, we want to take this moment and thank our fans who wake up very early in the morning to watch this show. We appreciate you. Thanks to Simkia out of Hawaii, Ernestine Mpingo, Councilman Farrell, Red Adisa, and Kwashi, who are regular viewers of the Queen Mother Speak show from California West Coast. Out of Los Angeles, nope, out of San Francisco, we have Tashmia, Nyla, Hakika, and Samantha. Tell us, who's rocking it in your world? Send us the names of the guests that you want to see on the Queen Mother Speak show. Donna?
Yes. So continue to wash your hands, keep yourself safe, and be alert. I've been reading that COVID and other variants are on the rise here in the United States and around the world. So we want to thank you for tuning in again to Queen Mother Speaks. It's a safe place for information, inspiration, and your self expression.
Yes, yes.
Bunga Dada Bunga is a platform for women's voices is here. So please catch them live every Thursday at 7 p.m. You go to facebook.com/Bunga Dada Bunga, and also on YouTube. Please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for tuning in. You know, let me say, Bunga Dada Bunga, we followed women's voices and gave them a platform to speak out on during the last Kenyan election. And we've brought you women who are making a difference, because it's not like in the United States where there were 3 candidates. We found 5,000 candidates. We found that when they're elected, their offices have no budget. We can't solve all the problems of the world, but we were able to give this group of women who exhibited courage under fire, trying to make a difference, an international voice for the first time. And if you have a topic or a subject, and we didn't just have women's voices, we had men who were fighting for equality of women, for equality of youth. We had the people who are being impacted. We've had the Policemen's Wives Association, and got to hear what they're going through, waiting to find out if their mates are coming home today or if they've passed. So we have really inspirational and dynamic shows that you don't want to miss. But we want you to write and tell us what you'd like to see. So catch them live every Thursday, 7 p.m. And I believe that is 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm
That's
in
correct.
Columbus, Ohio. Daktari is in Nairobi, Kenya. So we want you again, put it in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And we want to make sure that we've included you in our shout outs. So people often say, what is Queen Mother Speaks? It's a community platform for wealthy conversations that matter, commentary and insights to raise awareness, inform, inspire, ignite, involve, enlighten, educate. We like to laugh. We're best friends. So we'll be your best friend too.
That's
Updates
right.
on expatriating to Africa, or if you're going to visit, or you're a student, or you're looking at putting your businesses in Africa, or just touring, we want to encourage you to travel. Words on the news of newsworthy events, wisdom from the elders, warm, witty dialogue with guests, and a boutique of quotes and inspirational verses for you. Dr.
All right. Now, from the Art of Living Institute, we had an online breathing session. This is from the beginning, right? And we incorporated that into the Queen Mother Speaks talk show because it meant so much to us, and it really helped us out quite a lot during the pandemic season. So we now have the breathing sessions here on the Queen Mother Speaks show. We're going to go into it in just a moment. And then after the breathing, we do a short 2 to 3 minute meditation. So here's how it works. We breathe in through the nose to the count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You hold it also to the count of 6. And then you release it through the mouth to the count of 10. So once again, we breathe in to the count of 6. We hold to the count of 6. And we release slowly, slowly through the nose to the count of 10. Okay? Are you ready? Guests in the
Buddy,
studio and the viewing audience, breathe with me. Let's go. Hold. Let's try it once again. Breathe in. Once more. Okay, thank you for that. And I hope that you got a chance to touch your inner peace. We do know that breathing exercises can reduce stress by increasing the oxygen exchange, which reduces your blood pressure, slows the heart, and releases any tension that you may have in the abdomen. These physical changes also benefit your mental state. Concentrating on your breath can bring you into the present in a state of mindfulness. Mm, thank you. So, right now in this moment, we're going to go to our meditation reading, which is a story today about a motivational story about courage. I'm going to repeat the topic 3 times. So, you listen with an open heart. And the topic is simply this: today is your time. Today is your time. Today is your time. So now every year during the summer holidays, David used to go to a mountaineering in a dense hilly area with all of his friends. And this year, the guy took them to a famous mountaineering spot somewhere in Texas. And there, when they got there, they found a big crowd. Well, now, people were just everywhere. And a friend said to David, "Hey, dude, it's crowded here. Like, how much fun are we going to have here? What can we do? What shall we do?" Hmm? So David said, "Don't feel sorry. Let's just enjoy being here." Okay. He said that all the friends started mountaineering, and in no time they reached the top of the hill. So David was like saying, "Hey, it's not what we want, but let's do it. We're here. Don't let the opportunity get away." So the guys went ahead and they climbed the hill. So when they got to this hill, since they're about mountaineering, there were a lot of people there still. And they said, "Well, let us go camping for 2 to 4 hours in this crowd and then we'll go back." So we're here. Maybe there's like 50 to 100 people. Let's just go camping a little bit and come back. Okay. So that's what they decided to do. They heard about another hill, which was a little further away. And they said that that hill was very difficult and that most people never go there. So there were some people standing next to David, and they started making fun of him, saying, "Hey, brother, if we could all go to that hill, we wouldn't be sitting over here. So you better stay over here and just stay with us because that hill is too difficult. That hill is too dangerous." But David didn't listen to his friends. He went up by himself towards the peak. Hours later, guess what? David found himself on the summit of that peak hill. On reaching that hill, he found people who were already there, and they very happily welcomed him to be there. And he began to enjoy the beauty of the city and the nature and peace from this new peak that he was now on. Okay, so now one thing David did say that was not so difficult to reach the new peak is that there's just a lot of people over on the other peak. So people think maybe that's where they ought to be. But there was a veteran mountaineer amongst them. And here's what the veteran mountaineer said. He said, "Because most people are happy only in what they find easy, they don't think that they have the potential to get much more than what they've already done. And they just get afraid to take the risk. Since more people over here, they just decided we'll just stay over here." But guess what? The reality of the situation, said the veteran mountaineer, is this. The reality is that to get to the next peak of the next destination, you just have to do a little more work. But because not being able to show courage, most people remain a part of the crowd for their whole life. And they keep complaining about the few people who make it to the other side and they call them lucky. So What we're learning out of this lesson with David and his friends who were trying climbing the mountain is that if they want to try for the other peak, they can. It's just going to take a little more effort. So don't stop yourself from putting that effort, a little courage, because a little courage can get you out of the crowd and into the handful of people who folks like to call lucky. Have you ever experienced anything like that yourself, where it was something that you wanted to do, but you decided to do it or not to do it? Our theme for this season is inviting you to consider stretching out a little bit. Take on courage because we all get fearful of things. In fact, I'll just tell you, after 3 years, it's like, where is my steam to go into year 4? I'm working on it. I'm on that peak. I'm looking at creating something new and different. And by doing that, I just have to do what? Put in a little more effort. Put in a little more effort because after 3 years, it's like, ooh, can we have a big break? But on the other side of putting in a big break is you can put in a little more effort. Okay. And that's what Queen Mother is doing as we're moving into this 4th year. That's exactly what we're doing. So we want to invite you to start using your secret sauce. And the secret sauce is courage. So I want you to repeat with me, courage is my secret sauce. Are we ready?
Ready?
Courage. Okay. Courage
Courage.
is my
Yes, my
secret
secret
sauce.
sauce. Yes,
Courage is my
definitely,
secret sauce.
definitely.
Even in the face of fear, and
Hmm.
you step forward, that's what's called courage. So I want to thank you for being a part of our meditation moment. This is Queen Mother Speaks. We're in season 12, episode 1. Happy anniversary. Just a
Happy,
few more
happy.
fan mentions. There's Sarah and the girls who tune in with us from Dubai. Dr. Al Gaskins, who's part of the Sankofa Elders out of Ohio, Brother Chess and Lila, who tunes in with us from Ohio. And we thank them for that. Okay, again, we remind you to hit that like, share, comment button. Let us hear from you. Nana?
You know, on the subject of courage, I came across on LinkedIn the other day some information that was shared by Baba Rahman. He's a Ghana business facilitator, the CEO of Sabar Business Development. And it goes like this. Nelson Mandela said, "After I became president, I asked one day some members of my close protection detail to stroll with me in the city, have lunch at one of its restaurants. We sat in one of the downtown restaurants and asked all of us wanted some type of food. After a while, the waiter brought us our request. I noticed that there was someone sitting in front of my table waiting on food. I told then one of the soldiers, go and ask that person to join us with his food and eat with us. The soldier went and asked the man so, and the man brought up his food and sat by my side as I asked and began to eat. His hands were trembling constantly until everyone had finished their food and the man went. The soldier said to me, the man was apparently quite sick. His hands were trembling as he ate. No, not at all, said Mandela. This man was a guard at the prison where I was jailed.
Mm.
Often, after the torture I was subjected to, I used to scream and ask for a little water. The very same man used to come every time and urinate on my head instead.
Mm.
So I found him scared, trembling, expecting me to reciprocate now, at least in the same way, either by torturing him or imprisoning him. Now I am the president of the state of South Africa. But it's not my character or part of my ethics. The mentality of retaliation destroys states, while the mentality of tolerance builds nations. So I'd like to
Mm.
ask our viewers today, what's in your character today? Are you a person who can forgive? Or are you a person who has to retaliate? What is on our anniversary, I want you to ask yourself, what's in your heart? So moving on. Isn't that something, Queen Mother?
That is just it's such a beautiful story.
It
Okay.
is. It is.
And
That's
I
why I
can
wanted to share.
relate to that. I can relate to that. And I'm not going to say that I have the character of Mandela, but what I will say is there's a few times that I've been willing to pass, but there's other times that I was ready to beat you.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So my character didn't show up all the time. Some of the times I was ready to snatch you, beat you, right?
Right.
There's been times when we've let it slide, so we have some work to do,
Oh,
you
we all
know,
do.
on
And
our
and
on our characters. All right. So right now I want to talk to you about a guest on our show today, Mama Mabel Griffin.
yeah.
If you were tuning in to Queen Mother Speaks last year, we had her when she turned 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are a year later, and Miss Mabel has now turned 101 years
Okay.
old.
Mm-hmm.
She was born June 29th in 1822. We
Wow.
found out that her mother and her father were born slaves in America. And her
1922.
siblings, yes, and all of her siblings worked on plantations. Her
Mm.
husband, Joe, passed away in 1995, and she is actually the last of her generation alive. And she wants to tell us how God has been good to us. So, what Miss Mabel did on her 101 birthday celebration is she did a musical performance, and we do have that video. I am not happy to say that for whatever reason, I can't get the video up at this time. But as Nana has stated, we'll have it we'll have it showing during the week. All right, on the Queen Mother Speaks channels, also on the Nana channels, we'll be showing you, and you can hear Miss Mabel singing at
Yes.
101 years old. I love it. I love it. So that is a sweet anniversary treat for me to even know someone that's 101 years old,
For
and
sure.
then to know someone who's actually doing something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's still singing. So,
Absolutely.
Nana, how can we throw in the towel when all we're doing is a live stream show once a week for an hour? We have a
Well,
long ways to go. But
well,
we'll get Miss Mama Mabel up for you. She's
yeah.
out of California. She's been very involved with civil rights over the years.
Yeah.
She was close friends with Dr. Martin Luther King and
Mm-hmm.
Miss Coretta. We have some pictures of her
Yep.
during that era when they would come out to California. She and her husband and others in the religious community and pastors from the various churches would come together and plot and plan on what they were going to do in
Yeah.
the state of California. We'll be happy for you to get to meet Miss Mabel. Okay. So right now we're
I'd
going to
like
go back to yes, Nana.
I'd like to tell them about why it's a good thing to celebrate anniversaries,
Okay,
especially
great.
in this time of so much adversity and bad news.
Mm,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, anniversaries or celebrating a company's anniversary enables you to publicly reflect on why your business has stood the test of time. There are plenty of ways to mark the occasion without sounding braggy or boring people. So, some of the top reasons to celebrate a company anniversary is to
Hmm.
recognize the longevity of your business. Because, many people go in business and they stay in business only a year and then they're gone.
Yeah.
They remind us of important events, both personal and cultural, when we celebrate. Whether we're marking a birthday, a wedding, a civil partnership, a momentous event, or even the death of a loved one, an anniversary puts a pin on the calendar to remind us of something that matters to us. And as
Yes.
we get older, it's so important that we reflect on things that have meant something to us. And this show is so important because she and I have been, Dr. Queen Mother and I have been friends for a long time. But this
Hmm.
is something that we got to do together.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's special because a
That's
lot
very
of times
special.
we just tell each other what's going on and what we're doing. But this has been together for 3 years. We get to see each other and celebrate across the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we love it very much.
Hmm.
And we want to thank you.
Yes.
for being here and tuning in to Queen Mother Speaks over
Mm-hmm.
this 3 year period. And
Yeah.
for me, like I'm saying, I feel like I'm running out of steam. But what I've learned about courage is that all it takes is just a little more effort. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing. And the other special for our Queen Mother Speaks show today is Nana talking to us about these superheroes in her life. Now, if you've come to know Nana, all of you know that I have 2 degrees in African Studies from UCLA, very well known institution in America. Okay. Later on, Nana comes along and takes an interest not only in the motherland, but everything about the motherland. And somehow she was able to put her hand on a few intellectuals, if you will. And over the years, they've been teaching her and training her. And guess what? She's been listening,
Oh, yeah.
she's been taking it all in. And so today, she's going to share with you about these 4 gentlemen who have been in her life and who have literally told her the story as a griot.
Mm-hmm.
She had a chance to be with them, ask them all kind of questions.
Yes.
And so now she's taken that knowledge and information and endured it into her own heart and into her own spirit. And now she has become known in our community as a walking encyclopedia. As a walking encyclopedia. Now, I'm going to say to you that I have 2 degrees in African studies. And I'm going to say to you that it is true. Nana is a walking encyclopedia. Just like she was talking earlier about these 4 men that she's not going to talk with you about, she has now taken on that personification herself.
Mm.
How is she taking it on? Listen up, Nana.
Well, now we have a concept that's becoming more popular called a community historian. So if you don't have all the degrees after your name, don't worry about it. One of the first things that I realized is I've had several near-death experiences and that I needed to get it out of here and put it in books and put it where my future generations and yours can find it without starting all over from scratch. Because as we look at our education systems around the world, it leaves out many of us. And so it's important that we put it down. And the first person I was going to talk about is Dr. Njoku. So he built the Igbo village with other men at the Frontier Living History Museum in Stanton, Virginia. And I was invited to come and share my Igbo and Gullah heritage because my family, every generation for the past 5 generations, have left documents, books, photos, our travel books and journals, and an extensive collection. So I have the Underground Railroad Quilt Code collection. It's over 44,000 artifacts and 1,000 textiles that have been passed down to me from my mother, her 16 brothers and sisters, my father's family, and extensive knowledge of what we call Africare and going to share our talent, our faith with the motherland. So Dr. Njoku and other great men from Nigeria, and I think in particular Anambra State, got together and decided to build an Igbo village. Frontier Living History Museum has a British village. They have Irish. They have these live or living exhibits where people come. They have the sheep, they have the goats, they're making stuff. We cook on site, and you can actually go in and see what people from that time frame, the 1600s, 1700s, lived like. But this was the only place in America that I've ever been where you could go see the African village, and they imported the mud, they imported the thatching for the roofs and artifacts. So I was able in 2014 to go to a naming ceremony where I met Dr. Anthony Anaquinze. He was the president of the Igbo World Assembly. So I wanted to, as the keeper of the fire in our family, because my ancestor was a metalsmith from Oka, Peter and Liza Farrow. Peter worked on the Underground Railroad, but his son was my mother's great grandfather. And he told them that they were little Igbo girls. And he taught them the scriptures in the Bible, the books of the Bible. He taught them their ABCs, their numbers, and they had memorized these by the time they were 5. And they'd go sit on his lap, and he would tell them about being Igbo from Africa. So we searched for Oka, which at the time was spelled O-K-A. Never could find it. Then probably my mom passed in 2012. So probably in about early 90s, we found that it had been changed to Oka, A-K-W-A. And I immersed myself in studying the people, finding all the JSTOR documents to write a book about it. So Dr. Anaquinze, he was at the first Igbo World Arts and Cultural Festival that I attended. I memorized my speech in Igbo with some friends of my mother's out of Cincinnati who have also passed. And they worked with me every day, a gentleman and his wife. And I practiced to get the accent right. And then he told me before I went, he said, what's going to impress them the most is you're going to ask the men permission to speak. He said, no woman in 2014 asked a man to speak anywhere in the world. I said, that is true. So I went, and then they asked, did anybody want to say anything? And I stood up, raised my hand, took a deep breath, and then asked them permission to speak. First, there was silence and confusion in the room. Then they looked at each other because I had done a forgotten Igbo cultural moray.
Wow.
And then they were very excited. They all began to clap and stood up. And I thought, okay, put a silent pause in here so I could be like Coretta King when she delivered the speech about her husband at the United Nations that I had watched. And then I slowly did what she did. I dropped my head, took a deep breath, raised my head, and started speaking in the Igbo language to tell them that Ofa, or chieftaincy, passed from the men to the women in our family, and that now I held it. And I wanted to let them know that African Americans knew where we were from, knew our culture, and that we had not lost our names, we had not lost our culture, our faith. And as my son was taught, most importantly, that we were not illiterate, unskilled, pagan, or poor. That we had continued to strive to be great people. So Dr. Anaquinze pulled me aside and he gave me 2 books. And with those books, I was able to take my ancestry back to 948 BC in Nigeria. 2 very small little booklets. And it allowed me to finish my book, Keeper of the Fire, and it is 480 pages, over 3,000 photos, 500 book bibliography, 33 countries of archives, libraries, and museums that tell us where the Igbo people were captured in West Africa, brought through the transatlantic slave trade through Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, which was Vilango, on to the Caribbean. And when slavery was abolished, people were dropped off in the Caribbean and then brought into America after 1807, because then transatlantic slave trade had been outlawed, with Wilberforce and the British Navy monitoring the seas, capturing many vessels who were illegally slaving. But as you know, slavery continued in the United States, not just till after the Civil War, but until the 80s and 89, because Native Americans didn't have to give up their slaves. They weren't American. And some people took the slaves, or enslaved people. Nobody is a slave. People are enslaved. But they took them back to Brazil, where they continued slaving. So, Queen Mother, what do you think about that, as I want to throw a plug into my computer? Please tell us, what do you think about that?
First off, thank you for the chance to speak on that. And what I will say is that it appears to me that for whatever reason, the gods have blessed Nana to be able to even find those gentlemen and talk to those gentlemen, and the fact that they were willing to share with her.
Yes.
Because one of them did something that we call take her under their wing. You know how we talk about that? And he taught her some things very important. She commanded an audience when she went to speak.
Yeah. And he's
Similar to
done the
what she
same thing
did.
again.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Okay.
gonna
She
I'm gonna be there at the Igbo World Cultural Arts and Cultural Festival International, larger. They had to move it to Selden Park in Brunswick, Georgia. And what's fascinating, Queen Mom, is that they
Mhm.
didn't know my ancestors were enslaved right there in Glenn County,
Wow.
Georgia,
Wow.
only miles from where they're meeting and only miles from Igbo landing.
Okay, so one of the things that I want us to do, Nana,
Hmm.
inside of the Queen Mother Speak show is in the month of August.
Okay.
I hope you will take some time and bring us some segments
Oh
about
yeah,
the Igbo people,
I will.
right? Not just try to do it on one show at one time.
Hmm.
Create a few segments on the Igbo landing, if you
I
will.
will.
I
I
think we
will.
have, if I'm not mistaken, I think we have 4 weeks in the month of
August.
August.
Yes.
And you could choose to do that any way you want, but keep tying us back to the brilliance of these men. I'm just fascinated by the fact that they, for whatever reason, decided to take you under their wing and then to give you
Yeah.
those important books
Yeah.
for you to read. I had I don't know if I want to call it similar, but I will say that when I was a young woman attending UCLA in Los Angeles, California, I actually lived across the street from Ron Karenga's center.
Mm.
Ron Karenga, Dr. Ron Karenga, if I might say, is the originator or the creator of the concept of Kwanzaa,
Okay.
Kwanzaa.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, I love going to different churches and synagogues and temples and learning different things about religion and faith. I
Right.
love when I was working at Morehouse College in the
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King Chapel. I love when I was able to go into the room and see some of the papers that Dr. King had written. I
Right.
love that I was able to see some of the things that Gandhi had written and how Dr. King had interpreted a lot that he had learned from Gandhi, just like Nana has interpreted for us a lot that she's learned from these 3, 4 gentlemen.
Yeah.
Back to you, Nana.
Well, Igbo landing that we've mentioned is so amazing because when they brought a group of Igbo slaves or enslaved people and they let them off on the coast of South Carolina, they were determined not to be enslaved by the people who had treated them so cruelly on the transatlantic slave trade. And they had seen the port of Valongo and they had seen people sold and, taken forcefully off the ship and mistreated and degraded on the ship. They didn't have food. They didn't have bathrooms. People were sick. And the sick got thrown overboard because they had to pay a port tax when they brought them on shore in Valongo, which is now Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, or in the Caribbean, or even in South Carolina, in Maryland, Virginia, Louisiana. No matter where you came into the United States, a port tax had to be paid. So if your captors thought that you were not going to survive, then they threw them overboard. So there were trails of sharks that would follow the ships. And at Igbo Landing, chained together, this group of people decided they were going to walk back to Africa collectively. They started to sing and embraced hands and walked into the ocean together rather than be enslaved. And there's a saying, I will do my part. There's a part that each of us can play in changing history and making history. And each day you have a choice to have that courage and make history, to stand up and be heard, be recognized, but to honor those that have gotten you there. So when I finished speaking, even though that opportunity, it was amazing, but it didn't turn out the way I thought. I brought my most valuable textiles. I wore the most beautiful clothes that my mother had acquired in her trips, 5 trips to Africa and trips to Israel. And we only heard of the king. Remember the king's new clothes where the king had gold on his clothes? The African textiles, actually, mine have a gold border. The
Mhm.
Igbo people metalsmiths could not only find gold, water, copper, silver, lead, and make bronze and do the lost wax process, which they had learned in East Africa before they migrated to West Africa. These people were called Hebrews. Then in Nigeria and Ghana, the book I wrote, Keeper of the Fire, documented 6 of the tribes of Israel that stopped in Nigeria. 7 continued on to Ghana. And Dr. Njoku, who I told you a little bit about, he told me, he said, oh, yes, my tribe is called those who would not listen, because they stopped there. And as I was discussing all the different things that I had learned, when I went on to Ghana, I went on a medical mission trip in 2015 with Dr. Enakwenze. He not only greeted me and embraced me and mentored me, but he invited me to come back to my homeland. And if I could do the airfare, he paid for everything on the ground for 2 weeks. And that was no easy chore, because as you can see, my hair is very different than most other African people. So I had to wear a hat on my head, put it back and up under hats so that I looked African when we went in and out of villages in Anambra State. There were men with machine guns, so I didn't say anything because we had to pay to get in and out of towns up to 7 and 8 hours traveling with medical equipment and drugs, because he brought a team of doctors that did free surgeries, and we went to 8 towns in 8 days, and the fewest surgeries they performed were 400 and the most was 1,700. I mean, these people were talented. I don't know what I had thought, but I got to tell my history to the people who were waiting for surgeries and medical treatments. And I took inspiration from Dr. Queen Mother. She had taken 10,000 pairs of eyeglasses to Ghana before. And I had helped her with that. So I then knew the way. I knew how to do that because I was trying to think, well, what am I going to contribute? History's nice, but something you could hold on to. It revolutionizes people's lives. They could read the Bible. They could read signs. They could go out on their own because now they could see. And the doctors gave these things away. But I watched Dr. Enakwenze and his wife, who's also a surgeon, and these doctors coming and going. We had 27 men with machine guns to get us safely from one town to the next. But I watched him put this whole thing together, run all these different parts. And I thought, if one man can do this for his state in a foreign country, because he and his wife are surgeons in Los Angeles, and he could put together all these doctors from all over the world. And I met doctors, and we had students, and we had nurses and volunteers from all over the world, all these 82 countries that Igbo people had been taken to. I got to meet them and see that they were still doing great things. And no matter what was going on in their lives at the time, they dropped everything and came to help where they're from. So I want to encourage you today to consider going back to wherever your family is from, documenting your existence, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, but put stuff in the archives, photos, documents, tell your family story. I don't care what you did.
That's right.
There, and Queen Mother, when I got to the Igbo village, I met Eze Onyeso, who is now traveled. That means he's no longer with us physically. And he was telling me the difference between Inri and Iri and which one came first, and that they believed that they had migrated from West Africa. And that was profound because this is what I found. And this is what I was writing my book about and had written the book when I met them. And so this just reaffirmed that the history that had been passed down orally in my family was true. And I had his picture in the book, and I had the Eze of Inri and the Eze of Iri. And as you know, Gad's son from in the Bible, Old Testament, were named and lived in Nigeria, is what these people were telling me. So I went to Igbo Gad, which is the house of Gad, and on the floor in cowrie shells, I saw Hebrew characters and letters. When I began to look at the textiles that my mother and father and aunts and uncles had left me, I then found that they contained Hebrew characters in textiles from Ghana and Nigeria. I had gourds that had the Star of David on it. I found menorahs. And then when I went, the craziest thing, I had offered to buy the snacks for the people waiting for the surgeries. We went to a town and the people offered me locust, roasted, or fried.
Ja,
Listen,
la.
here we are. We saw circumcision. We saw baby naming on the 8th day. We saw blessings and praying and washing in the morning. We saw customs where they passed down the history and then they pronounced blessings over their children the same way they had in the Old Testament. They had domesticated animals. They did agricultural, grew crops. And then they used biblical principles to rotate the crops, just like in the Old Testament, so that they grew and minerals replenished in the soil. But the only place I have ever seen anybody eat locusts, and this person ate them with honey, was John the Baptist in the Bible.
Mm.
So these were not people who were savages or devoid of spiritualization. So I got to visit and hear from Eze Onyeso telling me about the yams, fishing festivals. And then I remembered on the Dover Hall plantation, they used to race canoes against other plantations and businesses nearby. So the men knew how to fell the tree, carve it out to make canoes, and they knew which trees floated. And then they would race. And then they had different fishing techniques. And then during the Civil War, they documented guerrilla combat tactics. There are no guerrillas in America. Then when I'm born in Germany, for those of you that don't know, so my great aunt Ozella and my mother's other sisters will come and visit us in Germany, and we'd go touring all these museums. Well, there are no gorillas or monkeys or lions and tigers and cheetah to have lion skin clothes or the pelts on the collars of kings and queens. They don't have elephants to have ivory in Europe. It's too cold. And that's what my great aunt would say, oh, no, that's African. The tour guides would be telling us, oh, this is the great jewel collection. And my aunt would say, no, those jewels cannot be found. Those minerals are not found in the soil here in England. No, they didn't have chocolate. No, they didn't have salt and seasoning. And she told us about the spice trail. And these men confirmed what I was being told about mathematics, textile languages. And I'm going to be traveling to Oklahoma, October 16th through the 21st. And I'm going to be sharing these things with 6 different groups of adults and children and giving away some books. So take a look at our Facebook pages. Both Queen Mother's and mine will have the event pages up. But then I had met Dr. Njoku, who taught at Western Kentucky University, and told me more about the groups he had studied who had come from Africa and held on to their customs and traditions. Then he also told me some customs and traditions of Jewish people. And my daughter, I'm here visiting her, and she lives in Bexley, Ohio, which is predominantly a Jewish community, and my son goes to that school. So the 4 festivals, high Jewish holidays, are also celebrated by the Igbo people today with just a different name. But Jewish people around the world, Queen Mother, celebrate the festivals of Booth. And I'm looking all through the community, and they had built thatched roofs houses, and they eat bitter herbs and sit in there during the festival of Booths. I said they make an African thatched hut on their lawn and sit in it and eat bitter herbs. And then when they were, with my latest research in Egypt, it is amazing, because the people who did the embalming are called Igbo. On the pyramids in Giza, they're called Igbo. In the pyramids of Saqqara, they're called Igbo. And those were the embalmers. And so when I left, I was going to stay in Nigeria and go up and down the rivers where Peter had been doing metalsmithing, bringing fashion and news of the day and all of these things to these different groups. He would have the word of God. He'd keep the tribes together. He'd bring fire. He'd tell you what was going on. They'd get together for marriages, births, deaths, and these messages were often passed in the textiles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, CNN Nigeria had reported that I brought the pharmacy to do the surgeries. And Dr. Enequinze, at the end of my time there, I came a week before to get acclimated and do some research. Then we were together on the medical mission for a week, and then we went back to Abuja. And he turned to me and said, "You have to leave when we leave because you won't be protected. And the people think that your remaining boxes marked medical mission carry the drugs to put people under for surgery. It's not safe for you here." Sadly, I had realized with the attacks and things that had been going on, I would not be able to return there and live. Boko Haram was going, kidnapping people and girls in villages and things. And so I went on to Ghana, where I became a queen mother in September. But I ended up staying 2.5 months in Ghana, and I sat at the feet of the late John Cranor. Mm-hmm. He had written a book documenting the migration of the Bantu or the Fanti people from East Africa west. And when I got to Kumasi, the people in Kumasi, the meaning of the Ashanti people is those who would not listen. And that was interesting because, and those who traveled on. Because in Nigeria, some wouldn't listen and stopped and camped out there. But when I got to Ghana, those tribes, and they say call them groups, some people find the word tribe offensive, but these were the actual tribes of Israel. And I know that, but now modern day people don't know that. And they said they were those that traveled on. They continued from Nigeria all the way over and through Ghana and all the way to Senegal and the farthest West African coastal countries. I found people that still had Hebrew customs, not Jewish, but Hebrew. And so I then started talking to people, Dr. Enequinze, Dr. Njoku, John Cranor. When I met him, he said, "You're a historian," because he said I was young. He was 99 when he passed, so yes, I was young. He said, "How long are you going to be here? You want me to tell you the entire story?" I was like, "Oh, yes, sir." I said, "I'll stay as long as I can." I said, "But I know I'm going to be here at least 2.5 months. He sits back, takes a deep breath, said, "Look around my home." And he had artifacts from all over the world. And he began to say, "It was the time of the third Pharaoh." I said, "The Pharaoh in Egypt?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Ramses?" He said, "Yes." And he began to tell me the story of all of the customs, all of the skill sets that I saw. And I was so amazed as he began to tell me and gave me the book he wrote. It's in Fanti, of this migration. And I told him I saw a video of a queen mother who told me the story, but it was an African story of Africa and Ghana in particular and other tribes who are matriarchal, which is the Hebrew custom. And she told me how her great-grandmother had faith and was willing to sacrifice her son that the rest of the people might live. Her husband was one of 12 elders. I said, "Well, that sounds real familiar." And that they were going to sacrifice their sons or one of their sons so that no catastrophe would hit the people. And the 12 men that heard this, of course, lamented. They couldn't eat. They were just distraught. And she said to her husband, "We have 2, and we can sacrifice one son because God will provide. We have the faith that God can provide." So their son agreed, laid down to be sacrificed. And instead, the high priest marked him with the knife and put herbs in those and said, "You are the greatest among us and will be the next king because you were willing to die for the people that all of them might live." And so kingship and queenship had been passed down in that family in Ghana. And I said, "Well, that sounds like Abraham and Isaac." And then when I became a queen mother, they sacrificed at one of the funerals I attended. I had got to know this little goat. He was in the car next to mine while I was sitting and waiting. And I was absolutely shocked because they said that he ended up being the sacrificial lamb at the funeral. And I was shocked when they brought him out on the field. I was going, this is not looking good for you. And they were going to slaughter a bull. But the people go into the woods monthly. They sacrifice birds. They go singing, celebrating, dancing. They dug 7 holes for the 7 tribes. They pour blood into it. And I was looking at the Old Testament Bible where they do sacrifices for the atonement of sin. They do celebrational sacrifices. And I was shocked. So,
oh, wow.
we're running out of
We're down
time.
to 4 minutes.
Yes,
We're down
I
to
know.
4 minutes
And
before
so
we end the show today. And we didn't really get a chance to talk about our 4 men.
Well, we did. We talked
Hopefully,
about Dr. Njoku. We talked about
we did
Dr.
not talk
Quincy,
about we did not talk about
John Cranor.
nope, we did. We missed one.
Oh, my dad.
Right. So
Yes.
let's not try that now.
I'm not.
We do have another week.
Yes, we
So
do.
we can start out next week with a continuation, okay, of what you're doing now.
Yeah, I will.
And cover and cover him. We certainly want to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, live at 5 East Africa time with Queen Mother Speaks. And we've been blowing this horn now for 3 years. And as of today, we're going into our 4th year.
Yeah.
My request to you, our listening and viewing audience, is that you let us know that you are there, that you send us people to be on the show, that you say to us what it is you want to hear covered. Are we really doing it for you or not? We are here for you, but we want to hear from you about some of the other things that you want us to be speaking on. So as this is the anniversary month, we're going to go back in history and take a look, okay, at some of the things that have occurred on the Queen Mother Speak show. And we're going to tie it all into that theme that we're dealing with at this particular time. Yeah. And the theme is to know that if things are not working the way you want them to, every success is good. Every failure is also good. The real deal is what you do to stay in the game. And it is called a thing of courage. And we're going to take a deep dive into the different aspects of courage and how we've had to use courage over these 3 years to keep the show going, and how God knows we're going to need courage to also move it forward further. Nana?
Well, we wanted to give some shout outs. Things are not the same in Africa as they are in America for older citizens, American citizens. They don't get to access Medicare. Banking is different. But the Democrats abroad are working on reparations. They're working to get equality for people who are not in the United States but have benefits. And Queen Mother works on some of those committees and has just done amazing things. I'd like to give shout outs to Soul Vegetarian Restaurant, good to you and for you. And we have the number. They're offering cooking classes, so you can just Google Soul Vegetarian where you live. But in Kenya, I know in Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, Atlanta, they do have restaurants. Lucille's Kitchen, she has a mouth-watering sweet potato pie and other treats for you. And we want to remind you to give blood wherever you are. We have Aisha Defala, who was Kenya's blood ambassador, had been on the show, and she wanted to remind us to visit a depository near you and donate blood. Here in America, they have at least 5 or 10 per cities. Some have 20, and they actually pay you for your blood donations. Then we have Enlightenment of Blissipin. These are practices that strengthen your ability to weather challenges in your life. And we have a free link for you to take you get a free week. And we were blessed to be able to give the policemen's wives a free week to learn how to weather adversity in their lives, because you can imagine how stressful being a wife of a first responder is. So on the screen, I have put the link. So then, Woven into the Fabric book, purchase it on Amazon by,
So hi.
yes, Sahai. Again, that's Woven into Fabric book. Her book and my book, Keeper of the Fire, are both available on Amazon.com. And I'm going to put her name up so that you get the correct spelling. And when I put things up on the screen, the beauty of it is when you go to watch it online, and we hope that you will subscribe on YouTube to Queen Mother Speaks or watch it on the Facebook pages. But when we put it in the comments, then even when you watch a repeat show, you can go find the name and things in the comments so that you can share in our experiences. So for the 4th of July, my post was whether you were free on Juneteenth or you were free on, you gained independence on July 4th. My fight continues because I still continue to fight against human trafficking, which can be employment slavery or sexual human trafficking. And in Kenya, Queen Mom has been working with an organization. I've worked with Polaris here in the United States, and on my Facebook page yesterday, I posted the national hotline phone number for America.
Okay.
Because people are still enslaved. And most recently, we found that child labor in other countries is on the rage because they're used by Tesla, Samsung phones, and iPhones. But this is the human trafficking number if you're in Kenya, because in some countries, there's no law that says you cannot sell people or you have to pay them for the work they've done. So we want you to be part of this journey. We want you to Google pronounce her name for me.
Vanita. Yeah, let me just take that on Vanita.
Thank you.
A young lady who retired in December of last year and decided to take on her life's dream, which was coming to Africa. Wow. And that she did. Made her first trip to Africa in March 2023. She is visiting one country per month for the next 12 months. So she's inviting us, all right, to follow her. And all you need to do is Google Vanita Discovers Africa 365. VENIDA. VENIDA. Vanita Discovers Africa 365. And learn about her journey. She's been to maybe, let's see, she started in March, April, May, June, July. Wow, she's already done 5 months. Let's find out where Vanita is. Next week, let's take a look and find out where she is. I know she's planning a very special event on July 19th, and we plan to be covering that here on the Queen Mother Speaks show. Once again, we thank you for tuning in. Live at 5 p.m. East Africa time, 10 a.m. New York time every Wednesday. And also, you can tune in on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Kenya time, 12 noon New York time for the Bonga Dada Bonga show. Yes. Next week, we'll be coming back again with more highlights and fun stuff for the Queen Mother Speaks anniversary for the entire month of July. Listen, let us hear from you.
Yes.
Are you enjoying this show? Come on. It's anniversary time. It's anniversary time. Look, you got to do something different. Let us know that you're there. Let us hear from you.
Yes.
So with that, we're going to end the show the way we always do, with love, because we believe that love is the most healing force in the entire universe. Yes. And we like to end our show giving you that love.
Yes.
So we do that by throwing a kiss with our left hand, a kiss with our right hand, and then we do it together. Are we ready?
Ready.
We do it together, starting with the left.
Lots of love for you.
All right, here we go. Anniversary love.
Yes.
Right hand. Okay, T, we got to do this one together. Come on.
Okay.
Here we go. You ready? We love you.
We love
This
you.
is Queen Mother Speaks, and we'll see you next week live at 5 p.m. Kenya time, and that is 10 a.m. New York time. So
Yes.
come on in.